In certain sports, the agony of defeat can be more than just a metaphor. Track and field is one such sport. Only the bravest of athletes choose to compete in track and field. After this video, you'll understand why. In most sports, you've got a team with you. If you're having a bad day, you've got other people you can rely on. Not in track and field. Spanning a variety of disciplines from short sprints to long jumps, from hurdling to relay races, track and field is not for the faint-hearted. These athletes compete for nothing but glory and to be the best. And sometimes, it goes horribly wrong. These are the worst injuries in track and field. We'll start with a gruesome display of gymnastics. Rio de Janeiro, during the 2016 Olympics, French gymnast Samir Ait Said would compete in the men's vault competition. Although he envisioned gold, this would not be his lucky day. Instead, he'd suffer one of the most grisly leg snaps in Olympic history. After a successful somersault, he would end up landing awkwardly and his leg snapped in half. Sometimes when athletes get injured, it takes a while for the fans and spectators to realize. Not this time. The crack of his leg shattering could be heard throughout the arena. His leg was seen completely broken, with the area below the knee dangling in the opposite direction to the rest of his leg. Nasty. However, despite this near career-ending injury, Said would be back walking after only 4 days. He'd make a complete recovery and even end up competing again soon after. He was lucky. Many athletes are never the same after an injury like that. That injury occurred on the vaults. The next one happened on the high jump. This also happened in 2016. And unlike Samir Ait Said, this man would not be walking after 4 days. In April of that year, Jaime Nieto would be paralyzed. Although a former Olympian, this horrific injury did not occur during the Olympics in Rio. He won medals in 2004 and 2012 Olympics, but by 2016, he had left serious competition behind, instead choosing to coach and perform demonstrations to aspiring athletes and students. However, during one of these demos, he attempted his signature move, a backflip. He was famous for this during his Olympic days. This time, it wouldn't go to plan. Nieto would instead land on his head. He failed to complete the full rotation and had to be rushed to the hospital after a truly dreadful landing. After came screams from his teammates and students who admired him. An injury like this could easily end in death. But luckily, Nieto survived, but at a cost. He became paralyzed. After being helicoptered from the field to the hospital, his whole body was numb and he struggled to breathe. And although paralyzed, by some miracle, he never suffered any breaks to his spine. The athlete never even had health insurance at the time of the injury. But due to overwhelming support from his fans and teammates and a surgery to fuse a disc in his neck, he managed to keep a promise he made to his fiancée. Right after his injury, he swore that he would walk her down the aisle, no matter what. About a year later, against all odds, Nieto did exactly that. The first two unfortunate injuries happened to professional gymnasts. The victim in this next one, though, was a 21-year-old freshman. Although no serious long-term damage occurred like our last track and field athlete, this one is every man's worst nightmare. I'm sure you can guess what's coming. Here's a clue. The sport was pole vaulting. Zach McWhorter was the unfortunate young man, and let's just say, this one isn't for the faint-hearted. McWhorter told reporters after the event that he could see right into his scrotum. Definitely not something I'd like to see. There isn't much to this one, just that the young athlete landed on his scrotum instead of the ground. He cleared the bar fine, but when it came to the landing, that's when things went wrong. Landing scrotum first on the bar, Zach needed 18 stitches. Luckily for the young man, his dad is a urologist and took him to the hospital right away. After stitching him up, his dad said he believes, apart from scarring, there's no permanent damage. For Zach's sake, I hope his dad's right. Next, we have a track event that's been banned in many high schools for decades now, but still, a few brave athletes choose to partake in this ancient sport. Although this one's a sport nowadays, back in the day, it was much more than that. In fact, this is one of the few sports where the athletes are trained to use a real-life weapon. Can you guess what it is? Yep, javelin throwing. Are you surprised the ancient art of murdering people from a distance with a projectile is dangerous? Here is one of the worst javelin throwing injuries. You're squeamish? This one isn't for you. The unlucky javelin thrower in this case was young Parker Kennedy, 17 at the time. He was practicing his throws for his high school track and field event. Either his state was one of the few where the sport wasn't banned, or was banned shortly after this. While on the track, Kennedy tripped mid-throw. What happened next is truly a horrific injury, in every sense of the word. The javelin impaled him right through the eye. It went through his right eye and even got lodged in the back of his head. And what's even crazier? Apart from some reconstructive surgery, young Kennedy made a full recovery. He never even lost his eyesight. Wow, what a lucky young man. Although they say javelin throwing has a low risk of injury, I can see why it's banned in most places. So, for today's worst injuries in track and field, we've tried to give you a variety from a range of different sports. But we couldn't make a track and field video without including one of the most popular sports, steeplechase. This sport doesn't just involve sprinting or jumping. It combines them both. The unfortunate athlete in this case was Victor Garcia. It occurred during the 2014 Zurich European Championships. Garcia's time at the event would be brutally cut short. Fighting for qualification to the next round, Garcia gave the 3,000-meter sprint all he had. A 3,000-meter sprint alone sounds insane to me, even without the hurdles. He was doing great in the race until he came face-to-face with the final hurdle. It's something he would have practiced hundreds, if not thousands of times. But that day was not Garcia's day. The injury itself, as you can see, is not fun to watch. Garcia face plants the ground after stumbling on the hurdle and falling heavily. He's immediately taken away on a cart, and although this looks like a lifelong injury, the athlete managed to make a full recovery. This isn't the first time a similar situation happened with Garcia. He's got a history of falling at the final hurdle. The same thing happened to him in 2012. He was actually winning the race before he stumbled at the final hurdle. Damn, that must suck. Although that time he recovered and still ended up winning bronze. In 2014, he wasn't so lucky. And after that brutal faceplant, all he could do was watch as the other racers crossed the finish line. So, there you have it. Our list of some of the most painful, violent, spine-tingling injuries that the variety of sports that make up track and field have seen.